Welcome to a broadcast of the recent Lorain County Commissioners' General Meeting. Unless otherwise announced, meetings are held Wednesday morning at 9:30 at the Administration Building, 226 Middle Avenue, 4th floor, downtown Elyria. These are public meetings, and you are invited to attend. Agendas are posted prior to the meeting at www.loraincounty.us. Click on Departments to see the Commissioners page, then click on View Agenda for a printable copy of the agenda.
Would you stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good morning and welcome to the January 27th meeting of the Lorain County Board of Commissioners. Commissioner Lori is the dog lady for today.
We have a cutie today. We have a little, about 3-year-old female Chihuahua. She was a stray. She makes somebody a great pet. She's got a little cherry eye, but that's no big deal. It could be taken care of. She's very shy, just loving, makes somebody a great pet. I did see that Hal made the paper about the commissioners' meetings are going to the dogs, and it was a good article. Our camera guy back there has taken 2 of our dogs from our meetings. I did notice that some people think that the dog kennel and the APL are the same thing, and I just wanted everybody to know that they're 2 separate entities, and our dog pound is located on Hathaway Street by the old Value City. Thank you. So come down and check out our pets that we have at our kennel, and if you don't want to take the trip, as always, you can check out our website. So, but somebody has to take this little girl home. She's a sweetie. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Kukowski. Thank you, Jack. All right. And in the nice article that appeared in the Morning Journal, they also noted that we have a thought for the day. So I have a thought for the day. It was on my calendar, but I think it's kind of neat. It says, if your computer says, quote, printer out of paper, end quote, this problem cannot be resolved by continuously clicking the OK button. Ma'am Clerk.
9:45 we'll have a presentation from Charlie Neff, Mental Health, and a 10 o'clock project hire. Under resolutions, number 1, Job and Family Services.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Ms. Blair.
Aye.
Mr. Kayla.
Aye.
Ms. Kowski.
Aye.
Investments.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Ms. Blair.
Aye.
Ms. Kowski.
Aye.
Mr. Kayla.
Aye.
Appropriations.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Ms. Blair.
Aye.
Mr. Kayla.
Aye.
Ms. Kowski.
Aye.
Transfers.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion.
Yes, there was a couple of solid waste transfers, one for $40,000 and one for $150,000 that I'd like to hold. I was here kind of late last night and had Lisa run me off some numbers from solid waste department, so I haven't had a real good chance to digest all of the information that she gave me. So can we, Commissioners, okay to hold those too?
Is there any urgency to those? Do you know, Mr. Cortez?
Pardon me. I don't think there's any urgency whatsoever. Why don't we just hold them next week and we'll get clarification on those issues?
Fine.
Thank you.
Those
Okay.
2 you'll pull, Teresa?
Yes.
Thank you.
Ms. Blair.
Aye.
Ms. Kowski.
Aye.
Mr. Kayla.
Aye.
No advances, no repayments, requisitions.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Ms. Blair.
Aye.
Ms. Kowski.
Aye.
Mr. Kayla.
Aye.
Travel expenses.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Ms. Blair.
Aye.
Mr. Kayla.
Aye.
Ms. Kowski.
Aye.
Bills.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Ms. Blair.
Aye.
Ms. Kowski.
Aye.
Mr. Kayla.
Aye.
Under the Commissioners, authorize various personnel actions as indicated on the summary sheet for employees within jurisdiction of Lorain County Commissioners.
Mr. Cortez?
Thank you, Madam President. I do have some hires at potential hires at Job and Family Services I'd like to discuss. Also, a couple matters of labor relations with regard to contract issues. Both of those topics are allowable for executive session, so I would request at the conclusion of our regular board meeting, we go into executive session, talk about those things. Thank you.
Thank you.
Approve and waive the reading of the same for the County Commissioners meetings of January 20th, 2010.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Ms. Blair?
Aye.
Ms. Kowski?
Aye.
Mr. Kayla?
Aye.
Establish compensation for law directors prosecuting violations of state law and municipal court per Ohio Revised Code 1901.24C for the year 2010. Lorain, Elyria, Oberlin, 10,000. North Ridgeville, Amherst, 7,500. Avon Lake, Avon, Sheffield Village, and Sheffield Lake, 5,000. South Amherst, Wellington, 2,000. Kipton, Rochester, Grafton, Vermillion, and LaGrange, 1,000.
This was on our agenda last week, and it totals $74,000. Are there any questions that the commissioners have? I'm assuming that there's adequate funds appropriated for this expenditure, Mr. Cortez?
Well, usually I get told that you want to pay something and then I have to find adequate funds. So this is something we've paid in the past. It was under discussion whether we should continue into the future paying it because of the difficulties we're having making budgetary adjustments. It's not mandatory. It was something that was negotiated through the prosecutor's office a few years ago, Jerry. I think you negotiated that.
Yeah, it's been a few years now. We do have to pay something. The question is whether we should continue funding it at the same levels or consider a reduction in view of the reduction we've done in other departments.
Okay.
And I
So-
think the language of the original resolution that was passed does give you the ability to evaluate this amount in terms of the economic condition in the county.
So we cut our departments by 20, 30%. We can also cut these by the same amount?
It appears we could.
It's discretionary, so my answer to you would be probably most likely yes.
This is what your resolution says, Commissioners, at the time you originally adopted it.
Did we adopt this? Has this board adopted it?
Well, it was probably 10 years ago, but we do this resolution again each year. But I'm going back
Okay.
to the original language, and it says the compensation schedule is established with consideration for the healthy state of the economy. The schedule will be reviewed yearly based on information received from the law directors and an assessment of economic conditions. As with any discretionary expenditure of the commissioners, the compensation will be evaluated in light of available county funding.
Well, funding is no longer available.
Hmm.
What do you want to do with it, guys?
Certainly not like it was 10 years ago.
I would suggest that we cut them each 30%, just like we did our own departments.
30? Where did we cut 30%?
Did we cut 20 last year and then we cut another?
3 this year.
Okay, so 25%.
Is that a motion?
Yeah.
I'll second.
Any further discussion? Ms. Kowski?
Aye.
Ms. Blair?
Aye.
Mr. Kayla?
Aye.
Thank you, Mr. Innes and Mr. Cortez.
Instruct the clerk to advertise for bids for law library reconstruction. Notice to be in the Chronicle on February 1st and 8th. Mandatory approved bid at 2 p.m. in Meeting Room E on February 12th. Bids to be open at 2 p.m. on February 23rd in Commissioners' Meeting Room.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Ms. Blair?
Aye.
Ms. Kowski?
Aye.
Mr. Kayla?
Aye.
Under Community Development, instruct the clerk to advertise requests for proposals for consultants to undertake preparation, administration, and implementation of CDBG FY CHIP. Notice to be in the Journal on January 28th and submitted by February 8th at 4 p.m.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Ms. Blair?
Aye.
Mr. Kayla?
Aye.
Ms. Kowski?
Aye.
Instruct the clerk to publish a notice in non-legal section of the Chronicle to fulfill the requirements of the Environmental Review Record for fiscal year 2009 CDBG formula program.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Ms. Blair?
Aye.
Ms. Kowski?
Aye.
Mr. Kayla?
Aye.
Mr. Cortez, County Administrator?
I have no additional reports or comments this morning. Thank you.
Mr. Ennis, Assistant County Prosecutor.
Commissioners, I do need to discuss several matters of pending and imminent litigation in executive session.
Commissioners report.
And first of all, I'd like to wish my sister Jolyn a happy birthday tomorrow. She watches our commissioners meeting every Saturday. She doesn't miss it. So happy birthday, Jolyn. Secondly, we did get a email correspondence between our administrator and Jerry Dahl over at Golden Acres. And in 2009, she said was not the best years, but there was a profit of $22,000 and an average occupancy of 83%. So good job over there, Jerry Dahl. Before Ted and I became commissioners, we had to subsidize the home, so they're doing a really good job out there. And then I'd like to call your attention to board correspondence number 1. It's for professional services account, and I see Tim Luby's here, and I did have some discussions with Mr. Cortez yesterday about this account, but I'd like you to come up and tell us why you sent the letter and what you need.
Good morning, Commissioners. Tim Luby on behalf of the Lorain County Common Police Court General Division. Just to recall for the public, in years past, the Commissioners have directed their budget department to subsidize this account as needed. And as further clarification, this account is, the purpose of this account is to pay for the services for indigent defendants, criminal defendants. So if their attorney requires investigators, requires a psychological examination, those type of things are paid for out of this account.
My discussions with Commissioner Kokoski briefly yesterday, I indicated to her that we're going to take care of that. We're just working on it.
Okay.
But I'm also going to transfer the account under the courts more fully, where it's funded as part of the budgetary process, so we don't have to go through this every year.
That would be wonderful.
And then we can establish the baseline, and it'll be more looked at as a all in at full absorption court costs rather than we piecemeals. I have a couple of these with the prosecutors and with the domestic courts, where we have a little pieces of this, little pieces of that, some from professional services, some from contract services. And you and Doug have been great as we've tried to clean up some of those things and scratch our heads why has it been like this for 12 years. So I'll make sure it gets taken care of for you.
I appreciate it. Thank you, Commissioners.
Well, thank you, Tim.
Any other further questions I can ask for you? Great. Have a great day.
The APL is also having a fundraiser this Saturday at Tom's Country Place. I believe it's at 6 o'clock, so it looked like it's going to be a good time. Dick Goddard's going to be there, and fun games and food and all that. So if you can attend and want to help out the APL, because they need our help too, just like our county kennel. And the only other thing, I guess, is I'd like to congratulate and thank all the people that worked so hard to make it possible for Obama to come here this last week. There's a lot of work that goes on behind the scenes for something like that to happen, and it couldn't tell by the way it turned out. It was a great event, and I was honored to be there. That's the end of my report.
Well done. Great.
Thank you.
It was a great event. Also received by email new transit rules. Secretary LaHood is worked out a new way of asking for funding that should benefit rural systems like our own. I don't know if Jim wants to expound on it all. We were trading emails all afternoon.
Well, you know, I'm glad you got to that yesterday. It hasn't passed yet. It's proposed.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things is interesting. It's going to take down the requirement from high to moderate when it rates these for funding. Used to be you had to score very high across all the categories to even consider to get in line for funding. They've dropped it to moderate impact now. And along with issues that are affecting commuter rail, which Commissioner Blair is well aware of, they're starting to look at the economic development impact more fully, and also the community impact with regard to the social services and the distress in the communities. I think it's a great starting point to release some of those more stringent requirements that didn't seem to take a look at public transportation as a whole, as into the rider itself,
Mm-hmm.
and how that was impacting the smaller communities. That's why we saw most of the money going to the bigger cities and the bigger commuter projects, while the small ones seem to be overlooked quite a bit. I would encourage the board to maybe weigh in with a letter of support on this to our legislative folks, indicating that I hope you believe as a board that it's a good idea that they pass these new regulations.
Thank you, Jim. End of my report.
That's it?
Yep.
Well, thank you, Ted and Jim. I also received information from All Aboard Ohio that dealt with the same subject but a little different venue. And it said, in what looks to be a massive victory for rail transit, the Obama administration has announced they will dramatically change existing policies for selecting transit projects for federal funding, focusing on issues such as economic development opportunities and environmental benefits, as opposed to the existing criteria that are narrowly focused on cost and time saved. And this move will rescind criteria put into place by President George W. Bush in 2005 in an effort to reduce the federal role in transit funding. So that, together with what you've just said, is additional good news for our transit and our commuter rail project. And we were privileged to sit in the front row at the Obama festivities at Lorain County Community College, and Lori and I got to shake hands with the president.
We didn't shake hands, we held hands, because Betty had a death grip on the one hand, and so he didn't have any choice but to hold my hand for like 5 minutes.
I wasn't letting go because I just wanted to mention 2 magic words to him: commuter rail. And that's the end of my report.
He's still got a bruise on his hand from when you were hanging on to him.
You just wished I was holding your hand, Jimmy boy.
Board correspondence?
I move the reading be waived.
Second.
Discussion. Ms. Blair?
Aye.
Mr. Kayla?
Aye.
Ms. Kowski?
Aye.
We'll go to our Charlie Neff Mental Health Board.
Good morning, Charlie. Welcome.
Thank you for letting me be here today. I have a small presentation. I know you are aware, but I wanted to cover some things for the general audience about who is the Board of Mental Health. And it's made up of 18 citizens of Lorain County who have an interest in mental health. That's the only requirements, that they live in the county and that they have that interest and care to volunteer their time. 12 are appointed by your board, and 6 are appointed by the Ohio Department of Mental Health Director. Okay, what do we do? The Board of Mental Health has a responsibility for planning, funding, and providing oversight of public mental health services that are delivered to the citizens of Lorain County. This is just a short graph, and I'm not going to go into this in any great detail other than to point out a couple of things on here. This is our most recently completed fiscal year, and our system provided clinical services to more than 10,500 residents of Lorain County during the year. And of those, it broke out so that a little more than a third were children under the age of 18. And this is a graph that demonstrates the growth over the last several years in terms of the number of people we are serving in our system who have been determined to have a severe mental illness or a severe emotional disturbance in the case of children. And you can see that it's a dramatic increase. So we are treating more and more difficult cases, and that's really a good thing because we're serving people in the community instead of being in institutions, and I think that's always a great thing. People can recover through treatment and lead productive lives. Now we get to the crux of things and why I'm here today. This demonstrates the breakout of the revenues that come to the Board of Mental Health in Lorain County. And the blue little slice of the pie is the levy that I'm here to talk with you about today. Now we have been, like everybody else, devastated with cuts as a result of the state's budget. In the last 18 months, our state funding has been reduced by about $3.8 million each year, and that's difficult, but we're doing the best we can to make sure that we continue to provide the kind of services that the community needs. But you can see that this particular levy accounts for nearly 29% of the revenue that's available for providing mental health services in the county. So it is critical to our operations and our funding for services in the community. Now, where do we spend our money? And I think it's important to note that nearly 93% of every dollar that we spend is spent on direct client care. We have a very low administrative overhead burden to what we do, and our focus is always to put every single dollar we can into services in the community. Now, the Board of Mental Health is somewhat unique in that we do not provide direct services ourselves. By law, we can't. We accomplish our mission by contracting with various agencies in the community who provide a wide array of services. And this is just a list of some of the agencies that we fund in the community, and I'm sure a lot of these will be familiar to people. And then I, at this point, would ask if you have any questions. But we are asking for our levy that expired to be placed on the May ballot as a renewal. So I would appreciate your consideration of that request. And I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. And I would note that you were before us last year and asked to go on the ballot, and we requested that you defer until this spring, and you were gracious enough to do that.
I also understand you haven't been very quiet with the state about your cuts either, and you've been fighting for Lorain County pretty hard.
Well, I was in Columbus yesterday. We had a legislative advocacy day, and I made my way around the Rife Center and the Capitol State House, talked to all of our legislators. I've expressed, you know, sometimes there are funding distributions from the state, and I've challenged some of those decisions because in some cases Lorain County did not receive what I thought was its fair share of those dollars. So I'll continue to fight with whoever I need to down there to try to get the message across that you know, the citizens of Lorain County do deserve their fair share.
Thank you for that. I have a question. I think initially we have to request from the auditor information.
We already did that.
Well, that was my question. What you had, what was previously given to us is sufficient for our purposes for this levy.
Yes, we looked at the both the projections for a renewal and a replacement, and determined that the additional revenue that a replacement would generate was really not that significant of a difference in terms of, but clearly when we look at something that makes up the percentage of our budget that this levy does, we absolutely need this to be able to continue. We already have been making some cuts in terms, we've made a lot of cuts in terms of the board's operation, but we've also had to institute cuts into the community services, but we're doing the best we can to provide services that are the most needed to those who most need those services.
And then you're asking for a renewal.
Yes.
Okay. Commissioners, do you have any questions?
No.
For Mr. Hammond?
Do a great job over there, Charlie, especially in light of the cuts you've had to endure. So no, I have no hesitation whatsoever.
Mrs. Johnson, you have a question?
Yes, I'd like to ask a general question. Shirley R. Johnson, Oberlin. You say that 93% of every dollar goes to direct care, number one. Number two, we have more extreme cases being served. I forget my third point now. But what I want, oh, I know, you contract out the service. How do you evaluate or know how good the service is to all these people?
Well, we have a couple of different ways that we do that. One is that every year we conduct satisfaction surveys where the board has a list of people who have received services and an appropriate sample is selected, and people are called and they participate in those surveys to determine their relative satisfaction with how they were treated and how their care was delivered to them. And we share those reports with all of the agencies, and any agency that fails to achieve a 90% level of satisfaction has to put forward a plan of correction on that particular area of the survey. Another thing that we do is to audit non-Medicaid services that are delivered at our agencies. Every year we go in with our clinicians and we look at the records and determine that services were appropriately delivered, were medically necessary, were delivered by clinicians who have the appropriate credentials and were appropriately supervised, and that everything was documented in the medical record. So we have quality improvement efforts that we undertake with all of the major agencies that we contract with, and we review those every year with them as well.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Charlie. Any further questions or comments? I move that the board approve the mental health board request for a 1.2 million renewal levy on the May 4th ballot.
Second.
Anything further? Ms. Blair?
Aye.
Mr. Kayla?
Aye.
Ms. Kowski?
Aye.
Thank you so much.
And thank you again
Thank
for the
you,
good
Charlie.
work that your agency provides for Lorain Countyans.
Well, thank you.
We could probably go with 10 o'clock. wouldn't you
We'll go
say?
to project hire.
Yeah, go ahead, Teresa.
Project hire. Dan? Or Steve? Don?
Done.
Don?
Good morning, Commissioners, members
Morning.
of the board. Don Graves with the Workforce Institute of Lorain County. Here today to talk with you about Project Hire, which is a stimulus-funded initiative that the state of Ohio has extended down to us and that we are offering through the Lorain County Growth Partnership in collaboration with our partners from the Workforce Institute, the Employment Network, Workforce Development Agency, of course the Workforce Investment Board, and our partners at the state of Ohio. It's an effort to get dislocated workers connected back to employers who can use their skills. I have with me today David Cooner, who is one of our business service representatives with the stimulus program and who's helping to head up this effort. And I'm going to turn things over to Dave to talk a bit more in detail about how the program runs and how we're working with the employers. Dave?
Thank you, Don. And thank you to the commissioners for having us on today. We'll make this quick. Want to let you know that in collaboration with all the folks and organizations that Don mentioned, this program is also in collaboration with more. The Ohio Department of Development is involved, the Department of Jobs and Family Services, the Board of Regents, and as well as the Ohio colleges and universities. And this is also, this program has gone out to all of the one-stop facilities throughout the state of Ohio. Our one-stop is, as we know, the Employment Network of Lorain County. Project Hire, as indicated by Don, is intended to link the employer and the employee, the job seekers, commonly known to us as the dislocated worker, which is a term that I don't personally care for. However, there is a reason for that term. The initiative includes outreach activities such as job fairs, job matching strategies, and an allocation of dollars toward training to help these folks to prepare for a new position with an employer. How do the employers engage with Project Hire? Well, there are two ways. One, the employer either gives us a call, or more often, we seek out the employer to find out what their workforce needs are, determine their hiring and training needs. And the steps that we take include the review of the employer's job descriptions. We will help the employer complete job order forms and post those jobs on free job sites, such as Ohio Means Jobs, and we will guide them also to set up an account with the college's career link and engage with JVS. Furthermore, once the job order is submitted and posted to the various sites, we will review, our people will review the pool of candidates that we have from programs such as Stimulate Your Program and Marketing Your Talents. Then we will pull from that pool of candidates a qualified set of resumes to provide to the employers for their consideration. We'll follow up with those employers to find out what the status is of those candidates that we passed along, find out who they would like to interview, and if they need additional candidates, we will pass those along as well, and determine what training needs might be necessary to bring them aboard. Lorain County has worked with roughly 1,800 job seekers through Stimulate Your Career system or program. 350 folks have taken it upon themselves to complete or are in the process of completing training programs themselves to either improve their competitive stance with others in their discipline or to reinvent themselves and re-enter the workforce in a new capacity. A sample of some of the training programs you'll find on the slide above. Various arrangements can be made for the interview. We may want to make it easy for the employer and their candidates. If they wish to keep it confidential, we can provide them space at various locations outside, such as at the college, Lorain County Community College, JBS, or the employment network itself. Whatever is convenient for the employer is in our best interest. Additionally, this April the 1st, we are conducting the Career Expo, and during the Career Expo, we have made special arrangements for interviews for Project Hire. Training support is done or is accommodated by the OLA or Ohio Learning Account, which provides the employer with $6,000 per individual for training. Whether that training be provided as a, well, the key here is that the money is eligible for dislocated workers who are actually who require additional training or an industry recognized certification as a condition of accepting a bona fide offer. So it's really important to understand that these folks are new, that they're qualified as someone who has lost their prior position lost due to a downsizing or a layoff and at no fault of their own. These are short-term classes that they can take outside of the business, or the classes or training can be taken as an OJT, which is the on-job training, on-the-job training program, or a combination of the two. The goal, again, is to find jobs for dislocated workers through the one-stop system. Job seekers are enrolled in learning accounts once there is a commitment to employment. And it's determined that the client or the dislocated worker requires additional short-term training as a condition of employment. Positions should expect to be filled for at least 1 year during the normal course of business. All Ohio Learning Account training must be completed by December the 31st. Whether it's classroom training or on-the-job training, the focus is short-term. What do we mean by short-term? That is defined by a 1 year in duration, a program of training for 1 year only, and provides and the training must lead to a degree, a license, or a certification. Selected training providers will be determined on a local level by case manager, by the participant, and the hiring employer. The employer must not have a former employee who is laid off. We're not looking to replace a laid off employee and utilize the state's money in that fashion or for a similar position. Funds are applied toward training and training the individual and the time that is taken to train that individual needs to be done on a matching, in a matching process. OJT, for instance, is may not result in displacement of employed workers or impair existing contracts. The program that we have set forth has attracted many employers to join us for a number of events. And we are engaged today with several with job needs. So we hope that as time goes forward, we're able to identify and engage with the employers in this program, and I look forward to your support. Thank you for your time.
Thank
I have
you,
a
Dave.
question.
Yes.
This sounds like JTPA. Is it the same program? Is there still a JTPA going on in Lorain County?
Don?
The JTPA, I have to admit, was a little bit before my time, but essentially what it is, again, designed to do is take those existing dislocated workers and first try to match them to the employment if there is an additional training need, be it on the job.
There is
or
no
in the classroom.
JTPA that exists anymore?
The JTPA was a former program to WEA.
Same thing. Is it-
Similar
Okay.
goals and objectives. After a while, you just change the name and shake the sheet out and bring it back in. But to answer your question, we are doing similar work through the One Stop and the Workforce Development Agency. So we have a very vibrant and active program ongoing. Lots of changes came, and when they made those changes, I want to say probably about 12 or 13 years ago, they just changed all the names. But the programming is still very similar, and that's what Don was saying. It was kind of before his time with that.
I worked for the Steelworkers Reemployment Program back in the mid-'80s, which was the same type of thing as this too. So it was, and we were pretty successful. It was a yearly thing, grant funded, and grant funding ran out and
The nice
got
thing
laid
about
off. And then I became a dislocated worker, and I got money to go to school to take my real estate classes. So it all comes full circle. I guess the other question I have is, what companies do you have on board with you that are potential new jobs for the people that come into your program?
We have, there are several employers we're working with now, and I'll have Dave make sure we forward a list to you of some of the employers that attended our information session back on the 20th, and some that we have received recent job orders from, so you have that. But there are several employers currently in the system who have posted some jobs. Off the top of my head, I know that Elyria Memorial Hospital is looking for some billing specialists, medical billing and coding, as well as, of course, the traditional medical paths, STNA, nursing. We know Verantis in LaGrange is currently looking for individuals. They make fiberglass fans for environmental filtering units. God bless you. We have some postings coming out of, let's see here, Equity Trust is looking for some individuals. We have a very broad base. We're getting wind of some manufacturing positions, but what we're seeing is that we're seeing some ones and twos, which is promising because we're seeing glimmers of hope. We're not just yet seeing the 15 people, 20 people, 30, 40. However, there are several prospects on the horizon that at the moment we're working with keeping quiet until we get a definitive answer from them, and then we can launch those publicly. That could be very promising here. But it is on the upswing. There are jobs out there. That is the good news.
So once an employer signs up with Project Hire, they don't go outside of that, and they pretty much are going to hire somebody through your program.
The goal is that they do hire someone that is engaged with our system via the either Stimulate Your Career process that we have when job seekers enter the one-stop system, which again comprises the college, the one-stop hub, and the joint vocational school, and any additional partners that go along with that. But if they do find a dislocated worker by some other chance that happens to come to them, that individual is not discluded from the state program, but they do have to engage in our system and follow by the rules that we have set forth for the funds.
Okay, thank you.
This is a fairly aggressive program because we're going out and making the contacts. One of the problems we have, we're trying to move quickly because we're only funded through the end of June. We were able to get some special funding for this project. well, and we're hopeful that we're going to be able to continue if we're successful. And I see Steve Moray and Frank Titilio in the back of the room, and they've been working on this with the leadership team from the Growth Partnership, and I thought maybe we should give them an opportunity to comment on the program. But we brought this to you because we want you to know that we're unrolling new programs on an ongoing basis, trying to get some traction with, job creation, job stimulation, and a lot of times workforce development is flying pretty low under the radar screen, and that's where all the initiatives are through the Department of Labor. And Commissioner Kayla has been to Washington a few times, and Lori, you understand the system because you've been through a lot of the system previously. Some of the most important work that's happening right now to assist economic development is coming through workforce development, and we have all the teams in place. I don't know what Frank
Actually,
or Steve
Mr.
may want
Cortez,
to add to that.
quick point of clarification on the funding stream. The dollars do have to be spent by the end of December 2010.
We have to the end of December?
So we have till the end of December for the Project Hire funds for the training.
Right.
For the initial outreach initiatives, those are the funds that have to be spent by the end of June.
Great.
Mm-hmm.
Good morning,
Good morning,
Commissioners.
Frank Titilio.
I think one thing that really excited us about this particular program is the fact that, we've been involved in a number of projects over the course of 20, 25 years that have to do with hiring and work fairs and those kind of things. And it's kind of like taking a shotgun and shooting it out and hoping that you hit something that makes sense. This particular program is really designed to take and pre-qualify people and also pre-qualify companies so that those companies only get to talk to people that are qualified for the job opportunities. Really makes sense. I mean, we find that businesses today are spending an inordinate amount of time in the interview process, not really finding people that are qualified to do what they need to have done. And time is money for them, and it's really important. And I think that this program does that part of that work for them, does the pre-screening, lets everybody come in, but it pre-screens people for when companies say we need these kind of workers with these kinds of skills, we can kind of pre-screen them or put them in a position to say these people are not 100% qualified, but there's training dollars available to get them to the next level so that you can probably put them on your payroll. So I think that that's one of the things that's really exciting about this, that it's not one of those shotgun approaches. It's really a targeted piece of work, and really excited about it. These guys are doing a good job.
Thank you. Steve Morey.
Good morning, Commissioners. Thank you very much. A great presentation, and what's most exciting to me about this project is when you look at the Lorain County Growth Partnership and the different projects we've put together, instead of all of these different initiatives working in silos, these folks are doing Project Hire, but we've talked before about our Business Connections program. So because we've already done the work of going out and starting to build the relationships with businesses in Lorain County and finding what kind of jobs they may have available, what kind of skills they're looking for, when Project Hire rolls out, instead of starting from scratch and starting to dial up companies, we already have a good idea of who's out there looking and what they're looking for. And maybe even because we're working so closely with Lorain County Community College, we've already, or with the JVS, done the proactive work to put a program or classes in place for that. So that's what's exciting to me, is how these projects with the Lorain County Growth Partnership are starting to overlap and find a sense of synergy with that. So.
And while you're at the microphone, give a little plug for the meeting next Friday.
Oh, thank you very much. Next Friday at Spitzer Center at Lorain County Community College at 7:30 a.m. we will be having our, I guess it's our fourth annual Groundhog Day event, which Team Lorain County is doing in conjunction with the Lorain County Community Alliance. We've got a great agenda put together. I believe we'll have a speaker from the community college, from JVS, our own Rich Enty from Lorain County Transit will be speaking about community rail. I certainly will take the opportunity to give a plug for Team Lorain County, but then our keynote will be Dr. Jim Roby from both Cleveland State and Team NEO, who will be talking about, we've had several events so far this year, which is an economic forecast, but it'll be more specifically, well, here's an economic forecast, and here's what it means for business and job growth and business attraction in Lorain County. So, thank you.
Thank you so much, Steve.
The commissioners, we have, as you can see, we're continuing to bring this programming. Project High is located on the 5th floor, along with the other initiatives that are there. So if people need to come in, Team Tuesday is always a big day for us, and everybody's welcome. We've had some changes with staffing on Business Connect. So Steve brought it up. And Ron, why don't you let folks know what we're doing and some of our changes upstairs with our personnel so that they know what to expect.
We have had for a little bit of a time Glenn Wilson. Glenn's here today. He works for community development. We have a partnership of the college, Team Lorain County. Who are some of the others? The community college, JVS, that have worked on Business Connect, and they've been gathering information on businesses so that it might help all of us look for ways we can help businesses down the road now and in the future. Glenn, as an employee of the Community Development Department, will be transferred back to begin working directly on the County Port Authority and SBDC. That process actually started Friday, and we are currently out for advertisement for a replacement for Glenn up in Business Connect, because you have agreed to assist with that growth partnership for.
Well, because we're down four bodies up in community development. Normally we would just transfer people around to mature their experience, but we're just short quite a few people. And I just wanted to let people know that we're making some changes up there, and much deserved by Glenn. He's done great work over at Business Connect, and he'll still be there to assist them right across the hall, but it's just the next evolution of our growth and getting some more services into the community. So congratulations, Glenn. Glenn was identified because of all the good work he did for us for the next level in community development. We're very pleased with what's going on in Business Connect with Phil Nikita, who's here, Don with Project 10, Dave with Project Hire. Right. And our relationship with the SBDC and Mr. DiTilio and the college. And, of course, Jimmy Shanahan isn't here today. Big mover in a lot of these programs. Right. And we have to give our credit there with him at the college. So, we're moving in the right direction, and we're trying real hard. But things are still pretty bad out there for most of our residents. And hopefully we'll get some traction in these programs real soon. The last thing is with Don on Project 10, we're getting ready to challenge the status quo, right? You have a proposal you're going to be bringing forward pretty soon here for us?
Yes, right now the two training providers are working with a company to develop a layoff aversion training plan and challenge the system. Instead of waiting for the policy to come down from the state, we have sort of some rough guidelines that we have been given that came out of the Department of Labor, and so we're putting forth a proposal and saying, okay, well, here's how we interpret it. Is this right? Yeah. Is this wrong?
There's a state's, our Project 10 money, which is train employees now, the incumbent worker training, we got that letter ruling. We thought we had until the end of March. We were working on the program. Then we got, out of the blue, we got a letter ruling indicating that all those funds had to go towards layoff aversion. And our waiver letter was pulled by the state, and that's the one that, those are some of the things that we fought for over the last few years, and the commissioners wrote lots of letters to our legislators with regard to support for that. Well, we haven't really received any guidance from the federal government or the state with regard to how to manipulate those dollars to get them back out in the community. And we've pretty much been sitting in a holding pattern like everybody else. So we decided about 3 weeks ago we're going to identify what layoff aversion means, and we're going to go ahead and put some of this stuff together. We're going to send it to the state saying this is our interpretation. If you don't like it, tell us something different, but we're moving forward. Because we need to get these funds spent now on these companies and on these employees now, rather than sitting around waiting for guidance that may be another several months in the making. So hopefully we'll have that very shortly.
We're working as fast as we can with them. They have part of their training plan outlined, but the company wanted to make some adjustments to make sure they're getting exactly what they need for 3 levels of training for the employees, sort of a basic, and then there's some they want to have in an intermediate level, and there's some that they want to train to a very advanced level to oversee the new process that they're working on. So
we should be in Washington at the end of February, beginning of March for workforce development.
We should have it well before.
Right, and one of the things I want to do is I want to carry that, and that's where we see a lot of the folks from DOL, and I want to carry that layoff aversion language and what we think it means and try to set some trends with that. So we need to accelerate just a little bit.
Julie and Diana actually met with them on, I believe, Monday. And so I'll be following up with them here today to find out what that action was. The company has the new application. They are working on that to complete that. So we are hoping, our goal was within the next, by about mid-February at the latest, to try and have that application put together and back to the Growth Partnership leadership team to then send forth and force some guidance one way or another.
Thanks,
Thank
Tom.
you.
Good job, guys.
Thank you very much. An exciting proposal.
Public comment.
Public comment? Is that why you're getting up, David?
That's why I'm getting up.
Well, come on down.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Good morning.
David Ashenhurst, Oberlin. I had 3 things, now I sort of have 2.5. I'm glad you asked for the commercial about the Community Alliance, because I noticed we gotten through your report without having it, and I was about to say something about it.
Covered myself, huh?
I do hope that maybe something can get to Hal that'll put it in sort of words, so at the end of this meeting that can be sort of on the screen for people, because the announcement of that was sort of buried in the middle of a long presentation that some people on Saturday or at least on Monday night won't see. Apropos of that as well, Commissioner Kalo mentioned that, well, there was the discussion of the emails going back and forth on transportation funding changes and things like that, and Commissioner Kalo referred to rural transit systems like ours, and that sort of piqued my interest, because one of the problems has always been that the Department of Transportation federally only has 2 kinds of systems, urban or rural. We have a county that has a lot of both.
You must sit down now.
It's not 3 minutes yet.
3 minutes are done.
No. Give him the hook. Okay. But so the fact that we have to be one or the other, and we are an urban one, means that a lot of things that we try and do are very difficult, because they are trying to cover a rural area, and the expectations of ridership and everything else are urban style, and we're not really that way. So I would love it if some of those rules were changing to make that, to serve a community that is a mix of both and needs both kinds of things. And I hope that some of that can be presented at the Alliance meeting, which is going to be talking about commuter rail and have Mr. Ente speaking and things like that. I mean, if there's anything that can at least be passed on to us, I'd be interested. I think that provides a good opportunity. The only other thing I wanted to ask about was to go back for a minute to your number 11 under the commissioners. I guess I wanted to ask a couple of questions. First of all, did you cut it 23% or 30%?
25.
25%. Okay. Second thing is, do I understand that these were the amounts that were established 10 years ago? I mean, were they the original amounts established? Well, I guess it gives me a little pause to say you've just cut something 25% that's been cut over the last 10 years by the purchasing power by at least 25%. I mean, this is already shrunk on a year-by-year basis, and for that to happen, and also because many times when you do something like that, whoever is the affected office at least has an opportunity to come to you and say, we really need this, or we want this, or this is how we spend our money, or something like that. Somebody may have done that, but the way I heard the conversation before, and this was before you last time, it was put off, but I don't hear that there was any consultation between the two that suggests that the folks that have asked for this for the last 10 years without ever asking for an increase when everything else has gone up, so that when you cut it back 25%, it may be where it was 10 years ago. This was just sort of done without sort of a let's find out some more and then take it up one more time at the next time and really look at this. So that was just a concern about the way that worked through here.
Do you expect them to come in and say, we're okay with the cuts?
No, but I expect them to come in and point out, I mean, what I just did, which was that by not having an increase in 10 years, they've already done you guys a big favor, it seems to me, at least not expanding
Actually,
the thing.
we did the favor for those communities.
I think maybe that's the other way around. And not only that, Jim, I just want, while you were talking, I want you to verbalize the, I think that we're the lowest county in the state with respect to the fees that we pay for the indigent attorneys in the
Right.
juvenile section.
Just simply because we don't have the revenue.
Yeah.
We're the lowest in what we reimburse, especially in domestics.
Okay, thanks.
Where most of the family work is done, and there's a lot of appointed counsel there. We're also 87 out of 88 on how much inside millage we get. That's the unvoted tax that is constitutionally put into place, long before we were here decades ago. We're also with the lowest 3 counties in sales tax rates in the state of Ohio. So we're the 9th largest county. We have the distinction of being in the bottom 3 on everything.
And I was for the sales tax increase.
I know you were, David, but
happen.
sometimes a lot of these other communities out there, they don't appreciate the difficulty we're in. And is it better to have them come in and say we can't afford these cuts and cut them, or just cut them?
And while I appreciate your comments, maybe you just pointed out, in essence, we've really just given them a 50% cut, which we could have done.
I understand. I'm not questioning that you could do it or even that you should do it, but I can tell you from the local perspective, because we have, the city of Oberlin is running a municipal court that takes in a wide jurisdiction. That's really done by Oberlin, that ends up, it gets us some restaurant money because people are there with their lawyers all day. But it is a cost to us to provide this. And I remember going through an exercise where certain violations are both a civil violation, a municipal violation, and a state violation. And
Correct.
the way they do that and the way they sort of bargain on it all has something to do with this, and I assume it has something to do with also what's going to happen if prosecutors...
Actually,
and who
David,
gets the fine money?
Let me help you here for a moment.
And who pays the jail cost?
They're actually distinctly different than this issue here, but it's relevant at this point to revisit why that occurs. If a charged person is brought in under a municipal ordinance and placed in incarceration, then the municipality becomes responsible for the jailing cost. But they also, at the end of the day, if there's any fees levied or court cost or recovery, they also receive that recovery. In the past, it was a mixed bag with the municipalities, how they were handling that, and obviously some offenses had to be placed under state charges. And when somebody's charged with a state offense, regardless of how they're housed, that becomes the county's responsibility to pay the cost of that incarceration. When we ran into significant problems with the jail and revenues were on the downturn, we had some large bills that were due from the municipalities to the county. They were keeping the fees. They weren't paying their incarceration fees to us, and to the tunes of a few $100,000. And not to suggest that Oberlin was one of them. I don't remember. This goes back a decade. So we simply had to wipe out a lot of that debt as unrecoverable. And then we indicated that we weren't going to house the prisoners anymore unless they paid us. They started charging everybody under state ordinance and shipping everybody to us, which again gave us a much larger jail problem at the time than we already originally had. So it really hasn't been a great cooperation. The cooperation comes in is if we can charge the county, we'll drop it on the county, and we don't have the responsibility for it. That is accurate. Now, you know, there's going to be some out there that don't like that statement, but I've been here long enough to see that occur. As long as it's somebody else's money, it's fine. So if they really want to sit down and have these collaborative discussions about sharing these costs, there's other issues that need to come to the table.
Well, I hope that discussion sometimes somewhere does go on, because the whole way that the municipal courts relate to the general county courts and what gets done in municipal court and then what gets kicked up to the Court of Common Pleas or whatever, that's a little murky to some of us, and with courts in our area that they don't do much except kick people over if, you know, it's a certain level of thing. And I just was asking about, you know, whether this worked by discussion and policy or whether it was just by budgetary.
And you could see that we could talk about it all day and never please everyone. Thank you, David.
Thank you.
Glad you're feeling better. Shirley,
Thanks.
did you have a comment?
I'm not sure what I have. I thought Mr. Cordes was going to get in his explanation about who pays what and have debts and so on. I thought I was going to hear something about the consequences of lowering this funding of the municipal courts. I mean, are they going to take less cases? Are they going to? I mean, what's the consequences? It's only compensation. I love that. But what are the consequences likely to be of if it's a 25 or a 50% cut?
The consequences are that the municipality will have to pick up more cost.
Ah, okay.
You know, a lot of these relationships should have been renegotiated when the local government funds were redistributed and 20% went more to the municipalities. All of these things should have been pulled up that year. With regard to bailiff pay, you know, how much we supply for the courts, prosecutor pay, all of those things, because we were working under assumptions and agreements that were made when the county was getting 50% of the local government fund, which we actually voluntarily reduced back to 48.5% in hopes of gaining an agreement and collaboration with regard to that distribution when we had some problems here in Lorain County, which was still in court over. And then when the Department of Development brought out the census in 2006 is when the shift came.
So.
I think it was in 2006. We were regulated down to 30% of the local government funds, to roughly around $3.5 million now was going into other communities and specifically into the municipalities that we had all these agreements with. But we did not, at that point, reduce any of our collaborative cost sharing with them, and it needs to be revisited. They have the money, we don't, and so this is a cost that they should assume. They should, and this is just one of many relationships that needs to be revisited to see even if we still need to be in the relationship because of that reallocation of funding that took place a couple years ago.
Yep. Well, that's a good. That's an explanation, and I hope that happens. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Jim,
Shirley.
I think we should actually send that correspondence over when we tell them we're not giving them as much money. It might be a lead-in or at least an explanation they'll understand that due to the downturn in our revenues, they need to pick up the difference.
Sure. We can certainly do that, and I'm sure, you know, Jerry's going to be in contact. He's always run lead on this, unfortunately.
Well, let me mention a couple things, just to go back to that first sentence I read. This compensation schedule is established with consideration for the healthy state of the economy. So when we negotiated this was at a time when the economy was very good, and we had those very express discussions that we were we were kind of looking down the road here saying this isn't going to happen, so, or continue. So, I mean, when we discussed this with the local prosecutors, they all knew that there was probably going to be a time actually it took longer than we expected at that point, because at the time we negotiated it, we were thinking within a few years it might have to be reduced. So they knew what we were talking about, and this schedule, that's why we put that language in there very specifically to cover that. This may not be an expense that is passed on to the cities to have to pick up. This is just an additional, this isn't a share of these prosecutors' regular compensation that they receive from the municipalities. This is an additional compensation that they get for handling state cases. So this is not necessarily a cost that we are foisting upon the cities to take up. It's just everybody paid by the county has had to take cuts. They're getting paid by the county for these specific duties, so it seems fair that, you know, before we lay off more sheriff deputies or whatever, just like our office had to, you know, everybody's had to share it, and it's only fair that they share in that cut too. So this is not just an expense, Dave, that's going to be sent to the municipalities. They don't have to pick this up.
No, but our law director will say he just lost money.
Well, I will remind the law director of our discussions.
Elizabeth?
Elizabeth Romix Oberlin. I think perhaps it's possible that some of the current prosecutors were not prosecutors back then, and this may come as something of a surprise to them. I think David's question was there embedded in David's remarks was there consultation with some of these law prosecutors and so on. I would just simply like to say, particularly in light of last week's long discussion and troubled discussion, that if you'll excuse the expression I put forth, perhaps the commissioners might be a little bit more sensitive to reactions when actions appear to be out of the blue and perhaps somewhat arbitrary. More consultation might make people friendlier.
A good thought. However, there are only 24 hours in each and every day.
Well, since we're talking about cost, and I'm getting ready to send you the email today, so just let me give it to you right here. Our latest sales tax numbers already beginning of the year are down 32,000 for our 0.5%. And
for how long, Jim? What period of time?
Well, we're looking at the monthly projections,
Okay,
but
thank
we realize it lags.
I know. I just
but
want to
for
know
January,
for a month.
She didn't know if it was, for a month.
our January report,
Okay.
which would not necessarily reflect January sales tax. I was just
November's. Wouldn't it be November's? Normally 2 months
2 months
behind?
behind.
yeah, it's probably November, beginning of December, in that time frame there. It's down 32 for us and about 15 for the jail sales tax. While it's slowed a bit, the decline is slowed a bit, it's still declining. So remember, that's based upon off the 2008 numbers, which were already declining from previously. So while we're seeing a little bit of a slowing in that, we're still seeing a decline. And if that slide continues, we're going to have to go back and look at what we budgeted, because we're not sitting on a whole lot of money right now to be able to absorb those ups and downs in the sales tax.
There's none here.
No, there's not a lot. It's not abundant right now, and of course we have those unanticipated costs that come in. We talked about one today with the courts, and obviously a mandatory duty to pay for those services for the people that are in ordered to have those services through the courts. So we're starting out the year with not great news.
Anyone else wishing to address the board? If not, I move we go into executive session for the purposes outlined by the administrator and the assistant county prosecutor.
Second.
Ms. Blair?
Aye.
Mr. Kayla?
Aye.
Ms. Kowski?
Aye.
This has been a broadcast of the recent Lorain County Commissioners' General Meeting. Unless otherwise announced, meetings are held Wednesday morning at 9:30 at the Administration Building, 226 Middle Avenue, 4th floor, downtown Elyria. These are public meetings, and you are invited to attend. Agendas are posted prior to the meeting at www.loraincounty.us. Click on Departments to see the Commissioners page, then click on View Agenda for a printable copy of the agenda.
Pedestrian injuries represent the second largest number in motor-related deaths. In the current report by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, of the 812 traffic fatalities for children ages 5 to 9, almost 1/3, that's 254, were pedestrian fatalities. These numbers were just very staggering to me in this office. Most of these were from pedestrian crossings, children not educated in crossing streets where there are sidewalks and obviously stoplights, or where there are no sidewalks and there are stop signs. So basically, it was based on the fact that they aren't getting proper education, or they hadn't any education on how to cross streets with sidewalks or without sidewalks. So that's what really got us motivated to look into this and do something about it.
County Engineer's Office is quite proud to announce that the Safe Routes to School program has been initiated throughout Lorain County. We're very excited about this. To help these children from grades K to 4, teaching them to walk the street safely is very important to us. We've seen statistics that quite frankly shock us. Many times we read and see stories of pedestrians being hit by automobiles in Lorain County, and it just tears my heart to see these children from K to 4 part of that. This program is to stop that, to help diminish those type of situations, and to educate these children on crossing the street safely. And we're quite happy to announce that.
Most of our workshop was developed and made in-house. Simulated sidewalks, simulated streets. We have actual working stoplights. We have the pedestrian crossing signs that actually work. We have operational railroad crossings. We also have the regular road signs, like your pedestrian crossing, your stop sign, your railroad sign. So we have all of these different things that the children can not only visualize, but then we actually interact the children in those situations so they can not only see, but they can use these in their learning abilities on how to cross the streets with and without sidewalks. We've had so many good responses back from the children, and of course it's just like anything else with children. When you ask for volunteers, when you're talking in a group of 60 and you can only have 8, it's amazing at the hands that go up. You know, does anybody want to volunteer? Well, everybody wants to volunteer. We make them go over these skills that we're trying to teach them, not only the volunteers but the group as a whole. So basically we have the whole class interacting. So if they say left, right, left, behind you, in front of you once, they say it at least 8 or 10 times before the workshop is over. So we've had many teachers and many principals tell us, and we even had one child that came up to us and said, you know what, Miss Spansky, we were going to cross the street the other day and we remembered, look left, look right, look left. So that was very rewarding. And so I think the repetition, the interaction with the children and with the items in our workshop is very important to them and to us. Before you even go into the safety part of it, they're in awe over the traffic light, and then our railroad crossing signals actually work. So they're just like, oh, ooh. And we get up there and we tell them, and we even give them some trick questions. You know, we'll say, well, we can see that train all the way down the track. Do you think we can make it, because you're fast and I'm fast and we can run? And of course they're very enthusiastic and no, we shouldn't do this. So we teach them that in some urban areas you will not have the gates that come down to keep you actually from crossing, that you may just have two sets of tracks, and just because one goes by and the signals stop doesn't mean that another one can't come from the other direction. So we tell them it's very, very imperative that they stay back from the tracks and they wait till those signals stop and to look both ways. And even once those signals stop, to look both ways, and they should never run across the railroad tracks. They should walk and continue to look both ways, because it's not safe and they could fall. They could injure themselves if they're alone, if they're not with someone. It could be very dangerous, because not only could they injure themselves, they may not have help if there is a train coming, because they are so small. And as you know, some of those tracks are very large, and you're talking in kindergarten through 4th grade. Some of those children are very small children. The main thing is that we tell them that only you know when it's safe. You have to make that ultimate decision. So make sure that you know that it's safe before you cross those railroad tracks or a street. One of the other things that we cover in the safety workshop, and it's also repeated in our video, children don't have that perception of the miles per hour. It's very dangerous. And the same thing with trains. We tell them that train could take, you know, forever. It's way down there, but we don't know the actual miles per hour. We decided to use 2 different videos. The first one is geared for kindergarten and 1st grade, and that is Otto the Otto, put out by AAA.
Hi kids! A lot of times you have to walk to get to places. And when you're walking, you have to be especially careful of cars and bicycles. Oh no! Those kids are walking the wrong way! That's dangerous! I'm going to talk with these kids. Down at the clubhouse, they're talking about the safe way to walk on streets without sidewalks.
I say you can walk across the street anywhere you want, as long as you look first. And don't get squished flat by a car. That's a fairly simple way of looking at safety. There are actual rules and laws for walking. Yeah, but the most important one is you don't get squished flat. Who's right, Maggie? Patrick or us?
I guess in a sense, everyone's right. The main idea is to get there safely, but there are some rules to help you get there safely, like don't run out into the street without looking.
The second video, we show 2nd, 3rd, and 4th grade, and it is put together by the National Safety Council along with Honda, and they developed the first humanoid robot.
Hey, Osmo. What's up, Osmo? How's it going? Osmo, this is Michael. Michael, this is Osmo.
How come you're dressed in a robot suit? It's not a suit. I'm a real robot. My name, Osimo, stands for Advanced Step in Innovative Mobility. I'm the world's most advanced humanoid robot. I can walk forwards, backwards, and even climb stairs just like a human. So, what's the first rule about crossing the street?
Stopping at curbs.
Correct. First, always stop at the curb. Then make sure no cars are coming. You want to look left.
It's clear.
Then right to see if any cars are coming from the other direction.
That's clear too.
Cars move fast. There might already be a new car to the left. So look left again.
Car coming.
See what I mean?
Okay, he's gone.
Kids love this. They relate to Osmo, as well as the younger children relate to Otto, who is an animated automobile. And he tells them about crossing streets. Osmo does the same thing, and he actually goes through with the children and tells them how to cross the street at an intersection with a traffic light, with a pedestrian crossing. He also teaches them how to cross because a lot of children at schools have parked cars. He goes over the issues of how to cross when there are parked cars. So he does a number of different things, how to cross the street when there are no sidewalks. So they both cover the basic skills. One is just geared a little bit more for the different age groups. Our response has been amazing, not only from the children. We have received numerous cards. I have a whole box of thank yous from children from the schools where we have that have participated in our workshop. We've had nothing but a positive response back throughout the communities that we visited this year.
I think it was really nice because they had a real life robot talk to you about safety, and you got to actually do what he said was safe. He said when there are parked cars to make sure there are no drivers in before you cross the street.
I saw that we could like know what to do when there's like cars coming, not to go in the middle of the road so you don't get hurt. You have to look left, right, left, behind the shoulder, and then straight. If they don't know how to stop at sidewalks, then I'll tell them how to. If they don't know how to cross without sidewalks, then I'll tell them how to do that too, because that's what we learned. I think that it was good because I didn't know that you had to look 5 ways, which were left, right, left, and then over your shoulder, and then ahead of you. I thought that crossing the road was really good for little kids if they don't know what to do by crossing the road.
It's a good idea because, like I said, the kids could walk through the whole process of crossing streets with the crosswalk, without a crosswalk, at the intersection. What happens if you're crossing in between 2 parked cars? Those are things that parents don't teach their kids. They go to Safety Town and they learn left, look right, look left again, and they go. And even my own son, who's a kindergartner, he just did Safety Town, and I still catch him flying across the street. And all I have to do is say, Matthew, remember Osimo? And he stops and he thinks and he does all the steps that he was taught in the video.
It was a great refresher, especially for them, now knowing, you know, what to do and kind of even additional things that they may not have been told or considered before.
Most of the kids did their little safety program back when they were getting ready to go to kindergarten. They start out learning all those safety rules. Then as time goes on, if you don't reinforce those safety rules and keep telling them, just like we do as adults, we think we're safe. We don't have to follow those rules anymore. We can do what we want. We can take a chance and run across the road. And I think this program was very good at reinforcing the fact that even though we're growing up, we still have to be careful. We still have to follow the signs. We still have to follow the railroad crossings, especially around here in Amherst. We tend to have a little trouble with the railroad crossings and kids wanting to play on them. So I think it was a good review. I think it was done in a fun, learning way, and the kids really enjoyed it. We were very happy to have everyone here at St. Joseph's School. If it saves one life, we feel like we've made a contribution. It's our way to give back to the communities.
in there. Here, have a treat, okay? No one can deny the loving devotion we get from our dogs, and I think we all agree we get back more love than we give them. I'm Dick Goddard. I'm reminding you, if you share your love with a dog, you'll never regret it. There's really nothing like a dog to spark up your life, whether you're a youngster, a senior citizen, or somewhere in between. And dogs have a whole lot of affection to share. Okay, is that good? You don't have to go far to hear heartwarming adoption stories.
With my husband is like saying man's best friend. He truly loves that dog. He feels it's part human. It's his second daughter, as Erica said. It's definitely a prize. She's queen of the house, basically. She's a good lover. She gives us a lot of attention. She's a good girl.
We had a cat before we had Abby, and Abby adapted very well. She is best friends with that cat. She will not harm that cat in any way. She's amazing. I love her. When I'm in bed at night, Abby will jump up with me and she will pull the covers back and she will lay under the covers and lay her head on the pillow just like a human.
I encourage anyone to go to the Lorain County Kennel to adopt a dog. It's given our family great satisfaction and a great reward.
After, you know, a bad day at work or anytime you come home, it's just always nice. They kind of turn your mood around when you come in the door, and they wagging their tails and jumping on you, and it's a great feeling to know that they're happy to see you and that they love you just as much as you love them. She is good with our other dog. She's good with people. She likes attention, and she likes to cuddle up with you.
It's funny when Lily, when you kind of discipline her sometimes when she does something bad, or she always seems to roll on her back and put her paws in the air and just look up at you with a sad look. So it's kind of hard to even get mad at her when she does something like that. So we kind of laugh at that.
And it's always amusing when she does get a spurt of energy and want to run around, and we're always like, oh my gosh, Lily's going to play now.
Yeah,
so
like sometimes, like when I'm on the couch or whatever, and she'll hop down, and she always like tries to bite her own tail, and then that kind of like keys on our other dog, Rocky, to chime in and try to, you know, bite at her tail a little bit, and then they start playing around a little bit.
One day we came home with some food from, I just really wanted a burger. So we had a burger and I had it sitting on the tray table by the couch, and I got up for a minute and got a drink, came back, and Lily was licking her lips. She had eaten the whole thing, and I was not very happy with her. So I screamed and told Kurt to come down and get her away from me because I was just so upset. But we both lived, and I was fine afterwards.
One of the best things about adopting a dog from the kennel, at least for us, was again just giving this dog, who knows what would have happened to her, a new life, and also giving our other dog a companion during the day. It's just fun to have the two dogs and take them for walks and watch them play, and it brought us closer as well.
You know, it just makes you feel better as a person that, you know, you're giving a dog a better chance to live a life.
Actually, I enjoy the exercise because I need to, trying to lose weight. Salem makes me get out of the house every day, and so I have to take him for a walk, even if I don't want to. And he's not that much trouble because he was pretty much housebroken when I got him from the pound. I really like the older pet because Salem was kind of, whoever had him before, they really kind of housebroken, so I didn't really have to go through the potty training deal. I just had to let him out and find a place for him to go. And I think older pets, especially for people who don't have children, are kind of good because Salem, he's real playful, but he's not, he gets tired and he lays down and he doesn't want to be bothered, and that's fine with me. So he's not always wanting to play, you know, because puppies have a lot of energy. And Salem has quite a bit of energy, but sometimes he just lays on his pillow and he's like, don't bother me, I won't bother you. And sometimes when he wants to play, he wants to play, and that's okay. I got Salem at the Lorain County Dog Pound. I found him on the internet, actually. They had his picture on the internet, And so I called, and he was still there. And so I immediately went over and looked at him. We went outside and played, and he jumped in the car and wouldn't get out, and there we were. So we were on our way home. So it was love at first sight. He's a very good companion. I can always depend on him to be here and greet me with, open arms when I come in the door. He's very protective of me, and he lets me know when anyone is outside or in the driveway. So I feel safe with Salem. Even though he's a small dog, he gives me a safe feeling just in my own home. If I'm having a bad day sometimes and I'm just not in a real good mood, he'll come up and snuggle up to me like, "Hey, Mom, it's okay." I think other people should adopt a pet, and even an older dog. The Lorain County Pound has so many wonderful dogs. All you have to do is go over there and look. I mean, even now, I still go on the website and I tell Salem, "Don't you want a little brother or sister?" Because they have all these little cute dogs over there, and they all need good homes. And if you're looking to adopt a pet, I suggest you try the Lorain County Dog Pound first. I mean, you pay for the license and just a nominal fee, and you got a great dog and a great companion and somebody that's going to be in your life for the rest of your life, and they'll love you no matter what.
Hello, my fellow commissioners and I are here at the Lorain County Dog Kennel on Hadaway Street, just south of Elyria City Discount, Value City. We invite you to stop out and see the facility here. We have lots of dogs available for adoption. We also encourage all dog owners to register your dog each year and get a dog license. That's your dog's ticket home in case it gets lost. It has a number and can easily be identified so that your dog can be returned to you in case he or she might take a little walk and you are unaware of it.
Along with the regular licensing that the county requires for all dogs, we also have a special dog license. It's a special heart medical care license tag for an additional $5. And the proceeds from that go to help us when we pick up a stray that's injured, hurt, or needs extreme medical care. It helps defer the cost for us. So next time you get your dog license, please pick up the special heart tag.
The Lorain County Commissioners would like to welcome you to come down to the Lorain County Dog Kennel. We also have a website that you can check out. Just click on Dogs to Adopt. There's plenty of dogs to choose from. Just like this little girl right here. This is Sadie. You can come down, make sure it's a good match for you, take the dog out, take it for a walk. But please, if you're thinking about adopting a dog, come out to the Lorain County Dog Kennel and see if there's a match for you.
Give the Lorain County Dog Kennel a call or check their website for photos of currently available dogs. Remember, your best friend is just waiting for you.
On April 1st, 2010, our nation will be counted. Every person, whoever they are, wherever they live. And what we learn will transform what we know about ourselves. The 2010 census, it's a new portrait of America. The 2010 census is an exciting milestone for America. It promises to deliver accurate information about our diverse and growing population. And it's important for the future of every community. Census data will be used to allocate over $300 billion in federal funds every year.
The 2010 census will be important to the nation because it is the foundation of our democracy.
The census, no matter when it is the consummate partnership between local, state, and federal government.
Communities use the data to plan for their future, like disaster and emergency services, healthcare services, schools, transportation, libraries, senior centers, and more. The 2010 census builds on the success of previous censuses and is the best planned and most well-researched census ever. And innovations, like a new short census form, will help to make it even more successful. The 2010 census, it's easy to complete. Data are always confidential and safeguarded. It's important.
This census is a commitment to the American way of life. To be counted as a resident of the United States, I think, is one of the proudest things that can happen to you in this country. It's important. Stand up for yourself, be counted, let people know you're out there.
The 2010 census. It's a new portrait of America.
A photograph, a time and place, a picture holds a moment's space, a portrait of hopes and dreams, telling the story of our times. And for now we know that we're changing fast, and for now it's clear that we've left the past. America, let's celebrate. We're proud and we stand tall together. A portrait of us all.
The 2010 census. It's a new portrait of America.
In 1787, the Continental Congress organized the lands from the Ohio River to the Mississippi into the Northwest Territories. In 1803, the first of these territories to become a state was Ohio. Ohio was in turn divided into various land grants, including the Connecticut Western Reserve in the northeast corner of the state. The Western Reserve included the area that is today Lorain County. As Ohio gradually increased its counties to the present 88, the land we know as Lorain County went through several changes. Until 1810, the area was split between Geauga and Portage counties. When the area was being organized into Lorain County in 1822, it was created out of land from Huron, Cuyahoga, and Medina counties. At the time of its birth, Lorain County included Olmsted Township, now in Cuyahoga County, Spencer and Homer Townships, now in Medina County, and Troy and Sullivan Townships, now in Ashland County. This map illustrates the county as it appeared at the time of Ohio's centennial, and although some of the townships have been absorbed by incorporation, it also represents the shape of Lorain County today. Let's take a brief historical look at each of Lorain County's 21 townships. In 1807, the Calvin Hoadley and Herman Bronson families of Waterbury, Connecticut, began the settlement of Columbia. After a 3-month trek, the pioneers arrived in their new homeland in time to celebrate Christmas. The Bronsons, including their 7-month-old son, began that winter sheltered by their overturned bobsled wagon, converted into a frontier lean-to. The mouth of the Black River also saw the beginning of its first settlement in 1807, when Azariah Beebe established a trading post for Nathan Perry. This area, which 20 years earlier had seen a short-lived Moravian mission, would gradually grow into the village of Charleston in the township called Black River. Years later, this township would be removed from county maps because of the incorporation of the city of Lorain. Charleston adopted the county's name of Lorain when the city was incorporated in 1874. The dramatic growth of the city was spurred on by the expanding fishing and shipbuilding industries. In 1894, when Tom Johnson brought his steel mill to town, Lorain's destiny to be the county's largest city was assured. In 1813, the township of Ridgeville was officially organized. 3 years earlier, members of the Beebe, Terrell, and Root families had established this new settlement they called Rootstown. The change to Ridgeville was decided upon to indicate the sand ridges that passed through the area and provided transportation routes and fertile farmland. The area around the intersection of Butternut Ridge and Roots Road, first called Briggs Corner, was by 1880 known as Fields Corners and was the site of the town's water well. With the growth of the city of North Ridgeville, the township of Ridgeville was incorporated out of existence. In 1810, Silas Wilmot, along with Asa and Ira Morgan, erected a cabin on Butternut Ridge, and the community later called Eaton Township was begun. Wilmot married Chloe Hubbard of Ashtabula, and they were given the cabin, thereby becoming the township's pioneering couple. When Ridgeville Township was organized in 1813, it included Eaton, which was at that time called Holbrook. While the area was still a part of Cuyahoga County, the township of Eaton was separated from Ridgeville. Its first officers were elected in 1823, while the township was in transition to the new Lorain County. Amherst's township's founding can be traced to one Jacob Shoup. After first settling on the Black River, he moved in 1811 to the Beaver Creek. By 1815, he had erected a grist mill and the area's first distillery. Whiskeyville, today the intersection of Routes 58 and 113, earned its nickname as a center for the production of this important pioneer commodity. As the primary community of the township developed at the Old Spring, it came to be known as Amherst Corners. By 1836, the name Amherstville was recorded in the county offices, and in 1873, the town was incorporated as North Amherst. In 1909, the U.S. Postal Service had to choose between the villages of North and South Amherst. They chose the former, which then became the official and present-day Amherst. In 1917, in the northeast corner of the county, the township of Avon became another of Lorain County's 21 townships to vanish due to city incorporation. In 1814, Wilbur Cahoon had arrived from Montgomery County, New York, to become the first to settle in what was then Troy Township of Cuyahoga County. The farming community grew around its power source, the French Creek. Development along the interurban line would incorporate the northern part of the township into the city of Avon Lake in 1911, with the remainder of the township becoming the village of Avon in 1917. It was families such as the Burrell, Day, and Roots who established themselves in the Sheffield area in 1815 and 16. The township of Sheffield would not actually be created until 1824, when the newly elected Lorain County Commissioners made the township one of the first acts of their administration. The land had been primarily in Cuyahoga County prior to the 1822 reorganization. The southwest corner of the township was in Huron County and is today the only place to find a small section still called Sheffield Township. The remainder of the area has been incorporated, like its neighbor Avon, with the north becoming Sheffield Lake and the south the village of Sheffield. In 1816, Colonel Henry Brown of Stockbridge, Massachusetts, purchased a large tract of land known as Number 6, Range 19. Mr. Brown would later name the township after himself by simply adding Helm to his family name. Like the Old Saxon Ham, the suffix meant home. The Deacon Shepherd family were the first settlers when they arrived on July 4, 1817. The village of Brownhelm Mills, located in Benjamin Bacon's Mill Hollow, was one of 3 communities to develop. Bacon's Corners, or the center, was 3 miles east of the hollow, while just west of the hollow was Rugby, where stores, a church, a school, and the post office were located. The first settlers to the Grafton Township area were Jonathan and Grendall Rawson in 1816. 10 years later, the Rawsons were forced to build a grist mill, or forfeit their land under their original agreement with the Western Reserve Land Company. Railroads and quarries were the greatest influence on the growth of the village the locals called Rawsonville. The quarrying industry in particular was responsible for the influx of French-Canadian, Welsh, Irish, Polish, and German immigrants. In 1877, when the village was being incorporated, the name Rawsonville was dropped in favor of the railroad station name of Grafton. Originally a part of Elyria Township, Carlisle was settled in 1816 by John Bacon of Windham County, Vermont. When the new Lorain County was being organized in 1822, Carlisle Township became its own entity. LaPorte developed as the township village with Phineas Johnson as the first postmaster and hotel owner. In 1840, Anson Brayman's Carlisle Nursery became the first of its kind in Lorain County. Quarrying was another important industry of the township, as the sandstone blocks were used for city buildings as far away as Toronto. Founding father Heman Ely owned over 10,000 acres of the land that would be developed into the township of Elyria, and the city, which also bears his family name. In 1817, Artemus Beebe headed a work crew that came to establish a new village at the Y of the Black River branches. Mills were constructed and the main street cleared. Beebe's crew also erected a home for Mr. Ely at Broad and East Bridge Streets, and a home for himself across the street, which became the Beebe Tavern. Both structures avoided demolition until well into the 20th century. In 1822, Mr. Ely spearheaded the movement to create Lorain County. He donated the land for the county courthouse, thus influencing the choice of Elyria as the county seat. Mr. Ely's little village would develop into a city with a varied industrial base as well as the center of government for Lorain County. Simon Durand came to America as an interpreter for Revolutionary War hero French General Lafayette. Durand remained in the new nation and in the winter of 1817 moved from New York State to the 160 acres he had purchased south of Brownhelm. 10 years later, the population of the area was enough to support the formation of a new township. With the southern portion ceded to Brighton and the northern portion annexed from Brownhelm, the township of Henrietta was created in 1827. Although New England families represented the majority of settlers to the area in 1818, one of the pioneers was William Welling of Montgomery County, New York. History is not clear if the community was named in honor of Welling or for the famous English Duke of Wellington, hero of Europe's recent Napoleonic Wars. With the coming of the railroad, Wellington grew into an agricultural marketplace, and in fact was the nation's leader in cheese production from 1870 to 1900. The county fair, now located in Wellington, helps to continue the depiction of small-town America shown in native son Archibald Willard's famous painting, The Spirit of '76. In 1818, Joseph Sage and the family of his son-in-law, John Laborie, journeyed through a severe winter from Connecticut to their new homestead in Huntington Township. More pioneering families came to the area, and by 1822, the population was such that the Medina County Commissioners incorporated the township using the Huntington, Connecticut hometown of many of the settlers as its new name. Lumber, grain, and cheese dominated the local economy. In 1824, when Lorain County came into full operation, Huntington was transferred from Medina County. The citizens of Old Russia Township, that had been first settled in 1818, requested detachment from Black River Township in 1825. The town and college of Oberlin were founded in 1833 and would grow to dominate the area. The Oberlin concept combined a Christian community and a Christian coeducational institute. Through the influence of founders John Shippard and Philo Stewart, New York businessman Arthur Tappan, and noted evangelist Charles Finney, The college would become not only co-ed, but also multiracial and the nation's leader in the abolitionist movement. The independent spirit that created the first Russia Township was evident once again in 1992, as New Russia Township detached itself from Oberlin. In 1820, the Peter Penfield family began the permanent settlement of the area he had first selected in the fall of 1818. Penfield Township's organizational election was held in April of 1825. The first religious service was held in 1826, and the first school was in session in the summer of 1829. The township's first post office put the emphasis on post and not the office. As the Penfields lived well off the established mail route, a hollow tree near the river was used by the local residents for sending and receiving the mail. The township, with its fertile soil, grew into a part of Lorain County's rich agricultural heritage. In the fall of 1820, Abner Loveland Jr. became the first permanent settler of Brighton. Within a year, the families of Joseph Kingsbury and Abner Loveland Sr. had arrived, and the new community began to grow. With elections held in the spring of 1823, Brighton Township was being organized at the same time the area was being transferred from Medina to Lorain County. Like much of the new county, Brighton was essentially agricultural. Although Pittsfield's first settlers arrived in 1813, the area was considered too dangerous because of the British and Indian activity connected to the War of 1812. By 1820, the land was surveyed, and Milton Whitney became the owner of a large parcel. Whitney arranged for the Waite brothers of Russia Township to become the first permanent settlers in the spring of 1821. By 1831, there were enough residents to request that the county incorporate a township independent of Wellington. Pittsfield was chosen as the township's name to honor the Massachusetts hometown of many of the area's pioneers. LaGrange Township's first settler was Nathan Clark, who in the fall of 1825 established his new homestead on the east branch of the Black River. By the summer of 1826, 14 more settlers had arrived. The name LaGrange, which is French for the farm, was chosen to honor French General Lafayette, as it was also the name of his country estate. In 1827, the area was separated from Carlisle Township and reorganized with elections in April into the new township of LaGrange. By 1875, the center had grown into a village, also incorporated as LaGrange. The pioneer settler of the Camden area was Leonard Clark. Over the next 4 years, other families moved into the area, including Roswell Babcocks, who built the first frame house in 1833. Early on, the area was divided between Henrietta and Brighton townships. In 1835, the new township of Camden was created by the county commissioners, and the first elections held in April of 1836. When the first post office was established in 1835, the community was called Panelise. The name was changed to Camden, then later to North Camden. In 1852, the Lake Shore and Michigan Southern Railroad called its station Binghamton, but that was soon changed as the town adopted the name Kipton. Kipton's more important connection to the railroad was a tragic collision in 1891. The wreck was instrumental in the creation of standardized or railroad time. Rochester was the last township within the present-day boundaries of Lorain County to be settled. Stephen Babcock brought his family from Massachusetts in the spring of 1832 to settle on land he had prepared the previous year. The area grew quickly, and by 1835, the commissioners formed a new township with the first elections held in April of 1836. The township's farming and related businesses grew with the population. By 1880, close to 700 citizens lived in the area. The population shifted from Rochester Center to Rochester Station when the Big Four Railroad came through the township. The small town boom would turn to bust when the railroad eliminated Rochester as a scheduled stop. The depot would be used as a schoolhouse, as the home of the Rochester Rod and Gun Club, and today as the home of the Rochester Historical Society.